Oh, hello, everybody, and hello, Chad. How was your week this week, Chad?
It was a week.
It was a week.
It was a week.
Oh, man.
So getting excited. Got the mower out.
Yeah.
Got it running yesterday, and gonna put some new filters in, and I'll go to my happy place here pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, speaking of mowing some grass, I think I need to mow some grass myself. I've let it go a little bit too long. I know that I have to do some stuff on the mower, like change the oil and do some things that you got to do to be able to make sure that you're ready to go for the summer. And I just keep thinking, oh, it's that time. It's that time. My neighbors are mowing. I'm going to start looking like the neighbor that's leaving my yard unkempt, and I cannot do that. I have to go ahead and just get the thing done.
So that's between the mowing and the gardening. Those are kind of my happy places. Those are those times where nobody can really get a hold of me. So
yeah.
It's like, hey, let's just go relax for a little while. And it sounds weird, but my neighbor has told me over and over and over again, when she sees me smiling, it's because I'm behind the mower with the muffs on and I'm just doing my thing. And she's like, dude, She said, you're weird, because that's really about the only time I see you smiling is when you're behind the mower.
Yeah.
And that's why.
I'll tell you, something I've learned over the last few years is like that I have to have a happy place. I have to have a happy place. I have to set time aside to be able to make sure that I get a happy place, whether that's go for a walk around Sand Creek or if it's go to Bethel Trails. That's what I like to do. My happy place is walking. Or really honestly spending time with family. That's for me, because my schedule is so busy. If I don't take the time to say, family time, being outside, doing things that rejuvenate myself, then it doesn't take very long where I'm just like, oh man, I look up and I've just done, and I haven't taken any time for myself.
Yep.
So, well, I want to jump right into something, Chad.
Sure.
Because I'm an avid reader of the Kansan, and being in the public eye myself, at times I've had this and that and everything else written about myself or whatever, and that's neither here nor there. But we've also talked many times about DFY. We've talked many times about Mirror. I know that there's been a few times on the program that people know that I've just sent a shout out. I mean, I've even pled with people, if you're struggling with an addiction, even now, more so than ever, if you're struggling with mental health, if you think you know somebody that's struggling with mental health, or somebody that's struggling with addiction, do what you can to help them, all right? To love them through it and to try to get them the resources they need to be a whole person, okay? And there was an article that kind of caught my eye that I had saw put out by the Kansan in reference to a postal worker. Okay. So a postal worker had well, I mean, I hate to say it because I'm pretty sure I know the person, and every time that
I do know the person.
Yeah, and every time I've seen them, they're a very kind person. Seems like a great guy, a great person. I have no malice or ill will towards this individual, but when I read it, my heart sank. My heart sank because, I came to understand that, man, if this person is struggling with this addiction, and a lot of people have them, and anybody that knows my personal life, I have loved ones and a special someone and loved one to me that has struggled throughout their life with an addiction, and it just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, Chad. And I started seeing some of the comments and social media kind of looking like the tide was turning on you and what you were writing about and stuff. And I'm like, I know Chad's heart. I know Chad's heart. I mean, Chad, you're my friend, man. You're like one of my best friends, to be honest. And I know your heart. And I just felt like, man, that was received in a wrong way. I felt like that. Okay. But I also, I just want to utilize this time just to give you an opportunity. I hope I'm not catching you off guard or anything with this, but I really want just to be able for you to have the opportunity and me just to ask you a point blank direct question. And I really don't know the answer, but I'm going to put you on the spot, Chad. Okay.
Sure.
Why did you write the article?
So you're talking about the DUI that was issued on a postal worker, Rob, I think he says it is Kuhn. Rob.
Yes. Yeah.
And we reported that the DUI was issued.
Yes.
And the why, okay. So what people don't know, and all those folks that are lashing out they're lashing out at me. Yeah. I mean, they write things like the editors needed to, and what, folks, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm the writer and I'm the editor. It's me. That's who you're lashing out at. Okay? And what they don't know is how many times I sit at my desk and I cry because of what I have to do. All right? They don't know how many times I go home from the juvenile intake office and I cry because of what I had to do. And they don't know how many times, my wife is sitting with me late at night saying, tell me what you had to do. Okay? And how hard that all is. Not to throw a woe is me out there, but woe is me. Those people don't understand those things. They don't understand that I know Rob. He's my mailman at the Kansan. Okay? But, that doesn't answer your question. The question is why we report this. Here's the why. And this is the deal, okay? This was not your run-of-the-mill DUI. There's extenuating circumstances here. Okay? Similar situations have been reported in Georgia, Chicago, I think Arizona, and I reported on some of those too. And that gets to the why. Okay? The relationship, which is an acquaintanceship, okay? He's an acquaintance of mine.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with whether or not I report this. Okay? It has everything to do with I ask myself the question of, would you report this if it wasn't him? And the answer is yes. This is a public employee, a federal employee, intoxicated on the job. This is a public employee, a federal employee, intoxicated while driving a vehicle owned by the post office. In essence, owned by us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? Straight up. I'm being 100%, I'm being bare naked honest. If he'd have been arrested after 5 when he's not working in his private vehicle, I don't care. And the U.S. Post Office would be handling it under their union rules, that nothing would occur to him until after a conviction.
Yeah.
Okay? If his license is suspended immediately upon the on the DUI, then they would be reassigning him to a non-driving role.
Yeah.
But that is not what occurred here. What occurred here is he was on the job. I cannot stress this enough. On the job. And this is a pattern of behavior. And for those folks that are on social media who are unabashed in saying, I didn't read it, yeah, I won't read it, I don't subscribe, and I'm not going to subscribe because, okay, fine. But if you read it, you'll find out, thanks to Jason Thompson over at the police department, who spoke very freely with me about this situation. Okay?
Yeah.
And And there's things that he said I didn't report. Okay, quite honestly, they made Rob look bad.
Yeah.
Okay. And quite honestly, they make our postal service look bad.
And to clarify, you're not saying they, as in the police department, made Rod look bad. What you're saying is the things that were expressed to you. Okay.
And what I did report is that Rob worked the downtown route, and downtown was calling 911 and had been calling 911 for months. Okay. I believe my secretarial staff. I do. He had confided in our secretarial staff that he had been through rehab before. Okay?
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting here saying he's got an addiction, again, people had been calling for months. Okay? The police department has met with the Postal Service about this. None of this arrest, this DUI that occurred, not a surprise. And the last thing that I want to put out there, people looking at me saying, "Why did you report this?" Again, he was on the job using the vehicle issued to him by the post office, and the arrest occurred in the middle of freaking downtown on Monday morning. People were watching. Okay? People were watching.
And they wanted to know what happened, probably.
And they do want to know what happened. And they want to know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And they were calling us, and they were telling us, and they were asking us, "Did you see this? I mean, it happened just about a block from your office. Did you see this?"
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is he's going to be arrested. And by the way, he blew 3 times over the normal limit. And I'm going to stand on this as well for the "why did you report this?" There's a reason that I know that the similar situations have happened in Chicago and Georgia and other places, because those media outlets reported it.
Yeah.
And in some of those cases, it occurred after an accident. Thank God it didn't occur after an accident here.
Well, and I got to say this. I know I'm taking it back to what I just said and repeating what I said before, but it really breaks my heart. Okay. It breaks my heart because I know firsthand from my own personal life and experience and it's been a long, long, long time. I, as a teenager, I suffered from addiction myself. It led me to make some decisions that I regret, and then led me to have to navigate the system because of it. That is the consequence of our actions. It just is. And in many cases, that is the point in time in which people get help, because no longer is it mom and dad or sister, brother, or uncle and aunt in my situation screaming out for help, saying, let's get this person some help. Now that's been 24, 23, years. We're talking like 30 years ago almost for me. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's this idea that, we're sitting here and I hate to say it, when you cannot force help on someone who is in that type of situation.
Correct.
The only recourse is then that for the public good and the good of themselves. For their own personal best interest, this is not over for this person. Their world is not over. Their world is not ended. It's the first step. It's the first step to being able to be, and this is the way it is, forced at this point in time to get the help they need. And we have rules and we have laws, and then we have a police department or a sheriff's department to be able to do their job to say, hey, you cannot do this. Whatever that you're doing violates the standard in which society says you can and can't do. From that point in time, when that happens, then there's, then you're going to need to do this, that, or the other. And then that's going to place them in a position where they can go to seek help or have to seek help, regardless of whether they think they need help or not, through a avenue in which, I've praised on the program before. I mean, Mirror, we've talked about that. We've talked about DFY. We've talked about these other entities that are there in order to help people get better. And then I just got to say it, people, and I'm just going to say it now. Okay. It's no sweat off my brow when there have been times in which people have, articles have been written about myself from things 20 years ago. But I don't remember anybody going out on social media and saying, oh, that is such a distasteful article. This person was 17, or this person, has rebuilt their life or anything. And I'm just kind of interested in the public there, that it's interesting that we are dealing with a situation that's immediate, at hand, and relevant. And I do believe it is relevant, Chad, for you to write about it. But yet I didn't really see anybody coming out and saying that it was a distasteful article when things might have been written about me that weren't even completely true.
Well, and there is a comment in that, on that post, that I'm going to reference right here too. And that comment pointed out very, very well that nobody was coming to the defense of the 23-year-old driver that we named after the hit and run accident that led to Lori Oswald Robinson's death.
I know, Chad. Oh, that's tough.
It wasn't distasteful for us to report on that, and it wasn't distasteful for us to name a 23-year-old driver.
Yeah.
Okay? It apparently is distasteful for us to, report on a dude that's drunk while working in public service.
Well, and aren't they the same thing in a way?
Well, I'm just saying. Yes. I'm just pointing out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll point out that no one has really discussed in any way, shape, or form the reporting that we did on the first robotics team.
Yeah.
And the experience that the person we spoke to that has gone through during high school. It has not been an easy road for that person.
Yeah.
Sarah Kane.
Yeah.
Who is somebody I know personally. Okay. And her parents. It has not been an easy road for her. No one is talking about that. And it drives me nuts that we have, quite honestly, this selective outrage.
That is true. I would agree. Selective outrage is the appropriate way to
right
at
this moment, no one's really talking about the reporting that went out this morning about a situation over at Ember Hope that led to the arrest of a juvenile. Okay?
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things I keep coming back to in my head, I'm not ruining people's lives. So let's just take that off the table. I'm not ruining people's lives. Okay? And this is something that goes back a long ways. Okay? And it goes back a long ways in both of my jobs. I am not ruining people's lives. Okay? So if I have to send a juvenile as an intake worker, if I have to send a juvenile to the detention center, I am not ruining their life. That is not what is occurring. There are a whole lot of people who have failed that person.
Yeah.
I am not one of them.
Well, they even fail themselves, Chad. I failed myself.
Okay. So as a reporter, if I'm reporting on, this is a really great one, because I heard this refrain, "You're ruining their life." I heard this refrain probably 50 times during this situation. Okay. But it wasn't me that ruined that kid's life when he and two of his buddies decided to use pie plates as masks and break into the Walton State Bank and try and steal the ATM machine. I was not the person that ruined their life. I was not the person that caused them to lose their college scholarship. Yeah. It was not me that did that. Okay? Likewise, and I'm gonna get real blunt here. It wasn't John Esau, the president of that bank, who was ruining those kids' lives. Wasn't him. Okay? Especially when he tried to give them every benefit of the doubt and every out of that situation. He did not ruin those boys' lives. Okay? I wasn't working intake at that time. Whoever it was that was in the intake room at that time and ended up having to send them to detention, that wasn't who was ruining those kids' lives. Okay? And it definitely wasn't the police that was ruining anybody's life. It just wasn't. Yeah. It was the decisions that those kids were making.
Okay? I agree, Chad. I agree.
And it's always been that way.
Yeah.
Okay? You know, one of the most highly contentious and most difficult things that I ever did as a journalist, and I'm not gonna relitigate it, and I'm not gonna bring it out, and I'm not gonna I'm not identifying anybody here. One of the most difficult things that I ever went through, and I got called some pretty nasty stuff during that time, including a racist. It was not me that ruined anybody's life there, and I'm going to give some serious credit to some parents who never used those words. Because they understood.
Yeah.
Okay? And they hated what I had to, and this is exactly how they put it. They hated what I had to do. And they absolutely understood at the time why I had to do it. And I had always appreciated every member of that family. And I still do, but it's also the last time I ever talked to any of them. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, Chad, and this is hitting home for me. And the only thing that I can think of over and over and over and over again in my own heart and mind is accountability. Accountability. The only way that I was ever to see the error of my ways 20 some years ago and to choose to be different was to say to myself, Lance, you're the one that made these choices. Therefore, you're in this situation and now you have to walk through it. And because you made those choices which placed you here, then every day you get to make choices going forward that are going to prevent you from ever making the mistakes that you did in the past. The police were not responsible for my choices. The judge is not responsible for my choices. My parents were not responsible for my choices. Whether or my dad took off on me when I was 2 years old, not responsible for my choices. At some point in time, you are absolutely 100% responsible for your own choices, and therefore no one should be chastised because of the outcome, whether that be the officer that had to arrest you, whether that had to be the judge that had to sentence you, whether that had to be the paper that had to write an article in the paper about you. It's just part of what happens when you make the choices you make. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I know this person, okay? And I'm just love to talk to the man. I mean, I mean, it just kills me inside. But I also, once again, have loved ones in my own life who I have to walk through and pain through situations because of addiction. I hate addiction. I hate the addiction. And it's sad. It's very sad. And it grieves everyone. But to point a finger at you, to say that you somehow or another are responsible for doing anything to anyone it's a false It just comes down to a false pretense. And I'm not saying anything negative about anybody that said, hey, because we all have our opinion, and I mean, I'll go to this, that yes, having your name written in the paper for choices that you made does in fact potentially cause you some harm, if you want to look at it that way, but no more than the choices and the actions that I read that and I just thought, man, finally, this is what I think. And this is how I think. So if anybody wonders how I think, there is a point in time in which a person has to be stopped. They got to be stopped from hurting themselves. And if they're in that situation and they're potentially going to cause harm to other people, then that means that they have to be stopped. And that also means that when they're being stopped from harming others, they're being stopped from harming themselves. And so if that's the case, man, and you happen to write about it, it is what it is. But and let's not rest here, Chad, okay? Because we had some stuff, and I did this to you. We're 20 minutes into the episode here.
I'm going to make just a summary statement because the question is why we reported it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make that. I'm just gonna summarize it, and it's gonna be quick. He is a public federal employee who was on duty. He was a federal public employee who was driving a vehicle supplied to him by his agency. He was arrested for a DUI. And I'm going to say it as bluntly as I can. Had this happened when he was not on duty and not in his supplied vehicle, if he'd have been driving his own car to the grocery store off duty, I'm not writing a word. But he was on duty. He has a duty to all of us. Okay?
Yeah.
He has a duty to all of us. Think about some of the things that we rely on our post office for. Things like prescriptions. He has a duty to all of us to do his job while not under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Period. And he neglected that duty. That is some tough love talk right there. Okay? He neglected that duty.
And I'll follow it up with this. And here's some grace. Speaking directly to you, if you hear this, if anybody that you know hears this, please use this as an opportunity to get the help that you need. Realize that it's out of your control. It's obviously not something that just happened the day before yesterday. It's been something that has most likely reached out, grabbed control of you in a way that you absolutely do not want it to, and that now is the first step. It can be the first step in getting help, and from there, changing your life and becoming the person that we all know that you can be. The best you. The best you. And you know what? When you're the best you, you're so much better for everyone around you.
Hey, he's got one of the greatest self-depreciating senses of humor I've ever met.
I know. I know this man.
Well, he wears shorts to work every day. I mean, every single day. It doesn't matter how cold it is out there. And, in February, he jokes about that. And it's just like, dude, man. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Addiction ruins lives. Ruins lives.
It does. And that's exactly why I posted what I posted and the way I posted it.
I didn't see any malice in your heart over the deal. It was accurate, factual, and on point. That's what you're supposed to do through journalism.
I don't know. Maybe I could have changed the headline a little bit to say "on duty." Postal worker arrested for DUI on duty. I I don't know if that would have.
I wouldn't hit yourself
I don't know
too
that
hard
would
over it,
change
Chad.
anybody's attitude.
I
But
wouldn't.
that's
What it is these people have an actual invested interest in this person. They probably know this person. They are hurt because this person is hurting, and that's understandable. But let's not get into the blame game. Let's reach out and call that person and say, "Hey, what can I do to help you? What can I do to help you? I read in the paper that this happens, and that really stinks. And you know, what can I do to help you?" And I got to say this here, okay? Don't kill the messenger. Don't kill the messenger. I myself have been subject to multiple times in which journalism didn't necessarily tell the whole story, or wasn't as factual as what it could have been. Definitely wasn't as credible as what it could have been. And then there's, picking and choosing of who we write something about and don't write something about. Like, for instance, I've never seen, authors of certain articles write things about their family, right, when they're having problems, but they're definitely ready to write things about other people's family members because, well, they've got some personal agenda there. It is what it is. But what we really wanted to talk about today, and we went really long here, was the successes in our community, okay? The successes. So let's just run down a lot of really, really awesome things that are going on. You kind of skipped over, you mentioned 2 articles that were really cool that you had written, and we talked about how they didn't get as much traction necessarily. But the robotics thing, that's pretty dang cool. I mean,
Yes,
for
it is.
anybody that is talking about our youth and what our youth is doing to make positive, proactive decisions when they are saddled with some real difficulties in their life, that person chose right. That person said, hey, even though I am in a situation where I am not going to be able to do what I really, really have always dreamed and love of doing and excelled at, I'm going to turn this negative into a positive. In which case, it's a very feel good story, but that's an understatement. It's an example, especially to our youth. And I mean, I've got to send a shout out to this person. I want you to tell everybody a little bit more in detail about this, but I just want to say, because I'm gonna let Chad say this, kudos to you. Kudos to you, because when you were confronted with a difficult time in your life, you chose to go higher. You chose to use it as a step to level up. And that is an amazing thing. And you're an amazing youth. And I hope that you're an example to others that are looking for somebody to look to in their peer group when they're confronted with something. And instead of choosing to do the wrong thing, you chose to do the right thing. Chad, let me have it.
Sarah Kane. I can't be prouder of any kid. I've known Sarah and her family for a really long time, and that whole family has had a really, really tough road lately. And she's a great kid. Her brother is a great kid. She's got a great dad. She's got a great mom. That road's been hard because according to Sarah, long COVID is really taking something away from her. She loves to swim. She loved being a part of the swim team, but she can't really even get in a pool without ending up with a debilitating headache that's just going to take her out for the day. I mean, that's really what it does. I cannot overstate how debilitating that thing is. It is not an easy thing for her. And this year she decided to not go out for the swim team, and she decided to just concentrate all her efforts on Rayler Robotics, which she's been a team member for a number of years already. And she, in her own words, she has found her thing. And this year they had her be a part of the drive team. Okay, it takes a number of people to operate that thing. I mean, it really does. And the rules of the game this year stipulate that there's even one person that's designated to feed the robot, basically. So, you've got a drive team that's going to be 3 or 4 people. She stepped into that role. And honestly, we need to not only be proud of Sarah, but the entire team.
Yeah.
That team, they did something that this year that the team has not done in a number of years, and that is come to within just a hair's breadth away of qualifying for the World Championships.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big deal, folks.
Go Railers, go Railer Nation,
Yes.
baby, Railer Nation.
Yes, a number of years ago, I wrote how, Frank Lindley was so dominant, and Johns Ravenscroft was so dominant on the basketball floor, but the accomplishments of the coaching staff of Railer Robotics ranks right up there with those guys. I mean, it really does. This program has been phenomenal. They've had a little bit of a lull here for the last couple of years, but it is really obvious last year and this year that this team is on the rise. And I went out to the high school to write a story about the team. But quite honestly, the moment I saw Sarah in the room, I was like, this is a story that really kind of needs to be told. Because this is her senior year. This was her last chance to compete under the Newton High School banner. And she's not alone in that. There's some others.
Yeah.
This was their last shot to compete. And boy, did they go out with a bang.
Yeah.
To be in that spot. And I unfortunately wasn't able to go to Oklahoma City, so I didn't get to see the emotionality of all of this. But I caught some of their meeting this week where they were just kind of like, they're doing what I would call a post-mortem,
Yeah.
And one of the things they talked about is how great it was that because of how robotics works, they're not competing alone. They end up on an alliance. There's 3 teams that are competing together.
Okay.
And they got picked by a very strong team to be a part of an alliance and for the double elimination tournament. And they absolutely stomped everybody through the first 3 rounds of that double elimination tournament. And they went into the finals as the top teams. And mechanical problems kind of led to their first round of the finals, it's 3 matches, and the first round there was a one robot, they didn't say which one, that wasn't even operational, and they still just about won that round. And then they came back,
Rock stars,
and they did win the round. And then in round 3 they had 2 robots going down in the middle of the round. And they still came within about 20 points of winning the whole darn thing.
Wow.
I mean, that is just impressive. And as I listened to them talk, one of the things that occurred there was, so this occurred in Oklahoma City. And the team that picked them to join their alliance was from Oklahoma. And then the third team that got picked was from Oklahoma. And so that arena was nuts.
Yeah.
They in essence became the home team.
Yeah.
And the arena acted like it.
Yeah.
And that was not something those kids is ever gonna forget.
Yeah. And I gotta say this, Chad. Okay. I put out a post myself on Facebook that was pro-positive about 373. I'm kind of partial of 373 for many things, but as you were talking about that, in the past, I would say, and a lot of activities that get praised and everybody's happy about is the sports programs, right? And you know, sports programs are great. I'm glad that we have sports programs, and I really believe that in the future that our kids are going to be able to get the credit that they've worked so hard to get when it comes to building teams and getting them through the middle school and the junior railers to the middle school and middle school to high school. And there is a huge group of people, I'm telling you, that are absolutely 100% dedicated and on board to making sure that over the next decade, Newton Railers will be doing a lot better on the scene. I'll say that because it's not for lack of trying. They're just in a difficult place sometimes. Maybe things don't work out on a few years when it comes to, you know, Railer football or Railer basketball or whatever the case may be, right? And no negative there. But I think if we take our focus, our ability to hyper focus on just our sports, and we look at all the other successes of everything that we're winning at 373. I mean, we're killing it. Like, I am a fan. You know, robotics that you're talking about. I know David Williams is retiring as far as the debate coach and forensics coach, I think is what it is. We need a rock star. We need a rock star to take the place of Dave Williams. Dave, if that's okay. David Williams as
Mr. Bill.
Mr. Bill. I'll call him Mr. Bill because you deserve that, Mr. Bill.
Yeah.
But so of Mr. Bill's spot. Okay, and if you're hearing this right now, and you know you think I got what it takes, that's a big shoes to fill. But I know that our kids need somebody to fill this role, and we can take them to the next level. We can empower these kids. We can empower our youth to go to the next level. I mean, Brooks Trade Center. I'm going to be having a few interviews with people from Brooks Trade Center coming up, just to be able to highlight one person that I'm in agreement with right now. We're just trying to find a time is Clayton Boffman. You know, I'm partial because he's my son's machining instructor. I did the welding technology program. I found out that Mr. McConnell is on his last year of doing that. I mean, we have got some amazing people that invest countless hours of their life to truly love on our kids. We're seeing a change when it comes to our principals, people, Mr. Newlick. We are seeing a lot of movement in 373 that is going to be highly beneficial. People that are dedicated to our community, people that are dedicated to our kids. We just keep getting them. I mean, should I reference Kansas Teacher of the Year that I interviewed a while back? I mean, like honestly, I am not going to be somebody that sits back and allows for rocks to be thrown when it's time to pick up the shovel. We need to get on board with the people that are working so hard to love on our kids, to educate our kids, to be able to be beneficial staff, to be able to be administrators, and even now, most recently, with our change in leadership at the school board. I mean, we are not the same we were a year ago. We're not the same we were 2 years ago. We're not the same we were 3 years ago. So people, stop picking up rocks and throwing rocks. If you got something that you don't like or that it's difficult for you to agree with, then pick up the shovel and start helping. And you know, I don't know if you got anything else you want to cover as far as the school system goes, Chad?
Well, I'm going to make one thing after that statement you just made, okay? Because it started with robotics.
Yeah.
And I want to end it on robotics. The unfortunate thing about Railer Robotics is that even if they had qualified for Worlds, they probably wouldn't have been able to go.
Why not?
It's money. And that program is funded through private donations. So pick up your shovel, folks. I mean, from day one, and I'm in a unique position to say this, from day one, and I am talking about watching Sean Taylor walk into the Board of Education and saying, I think we should try this. I have believed that Railer Robotics is one of the absolute best things that our school system's got going for it. It's a part, kind of of our CTE program, which is definitely one of the best things our school district has got going for it.
Absolutely. Love it.
And for the entirety of that run, for 20 years of that program, those kids have had to go out and raise money on their own to make that thing happen. And so if you want some place for our community to get involved, there it is. And just to really drive this point home, I will stack that program up any day of the week. Let's go do the stats. Division I scholarships offered to football players versus scholarships to places like Wichita State, Missouri.
NAIR program.
You bet. Let's take a look at the scholarships that have been given out over the last 20 years and the number of kids coming out of the Rayla Robotics program that not only earned scholarships but literally got paid to go to school in the tech world because of their involvement with Rayla Robotics. This is an amazing investment. And I will say it is a better investment than our football team.
Oh, Chad, I knew you were going to say something. Oh, that's not, I do not necessarily agree with what Chad just said.
It is a better, if you want to see kids go on into college and apply what they're doing in high school, and you want to see kids go on and get set up for great futures.
Yeah.
It is better than any sports program.
Well, you're jarring my mind, okay? Like, literally, I had a conversation with the dad today. I had a conversation with another dad today, and on the way out here, and I said, well, I'll have to call you back, but he's a single dad, loves his kid, is a hard worker, is a great man, and I'm proud to call him my friend. And, this guy literally puts everything aside, just in his own life to make sure that his kid has everything his kid needs to be able to be successful. And we were talking about a conversation that he had the evening prior, and he had mentioned that, his kid really likes basketball. His kid really, really, really likes basketball. And his dad is just really trying to impart some wisdom into him to say, it's not always basketball. Maybe, you can play basketball and you can get a lot out of basketball while you're here and what you're doing and everything. But have you ever thought about maybe band? Have you thought about robotics? Have you thought about some technological things that they have there at the school other than robotics? Have you thought about debate? Have you thought about forensics? People, we need to open up our children's views so that way they understand that going and being, the kid that can dunk every basketball every time, all the time, that one exception, that one small percent of individual that is able to go on and get a small scholarship, let's say, to maybe a JUCO college or maybe a local state college, maybe, just maybe, your child is one that would be able to be like Chad was talking about, get paid to go to another state or to go and level up in that way, and because they have a knack.
And that wasn't, the only thing comparable in athletics now is NIL, and the NIL money is at the D1 level.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get to. To folks, parents like that, of that nature, spend some time really critically looking at the recruiting processes that are going on in sports and the type of kids that are getting the scholarships. Seriously, really look. There's some cold hard truths that need to be told. The kids that are getting the scholarships are well-rounded. They're not one-sport athletes.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for MAYB. I have a lot of respect for all of those summer programs. But, folks, the kids getting scholarships are not specialized.
Yeah.
Okay? Seriously, they really aren't.
We want them to do track. We want them to do football. We want them to do volleyball, whatever it is. Yes.
You know, I had this conversation with a sophomore on the football team just this week. He has dreams of going D1. And I was like, okay, so what are you doing to get there? Well, I'm playing football. Okay. 1, you play offensive line. You want that scholarship to play offensive line? Get back in the wrestling room. Mm-hmm. It's no accident that good wrestlers make great offensive linemen.
Yep.
And everybody at the D1 level knows it.
Yep.
And when you take a look at the guys that are getting drafted, how many of them are football only?
Well, most are multi-sport athletes.
So that's part 1. Part 2, go to camp.
Yeah.
The recruiting isn't happening on the sidelines of the high school football games anymore. It's happening in summer camps. The same can be said for basketball. You know how they found out about Caitlin Clark? And don't tell me you haven't heard of Caitlin Clark. AAU. You know what she was doing in her elementary school and middle school years? She was playing soccer. That's where she was at. And she was playing basketball on the side. Arguably the most talented basketball player in the nation. Period. They found out about her in AAU. They didn't find out about her. They already knew about her when she went to West Des Moines. It was AAU ball. These are truths. Okay? Also, here's a truth. When you're talking about some of your smaller colleges, a lot of those smaller colleges have more money for music, forensics, and technology scholarships than they do for athletics.
Yeah.
So do not sell your soul to athletics. Please do not. I'm begging you, don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just don't do it. And also understand, may the odds ever be in your favor, but when you're chasing athletic scholarships, they are not in your favor.
Yeah. Well, they're really not. And I could go to a different level here with that before we move on, because we're getting short on the thing. But
let's go ahead and move on.
You know, and I just want to say this: as a teacher at Wichita State University, and knowing that they, being with teaching something that everybody had to have, public speaking, I was able to see a lot of athletes come through, and I would say that there were a few times where my spirit really hurt for these people, because they came in with a scholarship and then they were injured. One I can specifically say is this 7-foot kid. I tried to get him to sign a basketball for me, so when he's famous one day, and he just had to be real and say, well, I injured my knee and I can't play right now, and I don't know where I'm going to be, because that's what everything was riding on. Mm-hmm. Everything was riding on that. And so now I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do if I can't compete at the same level that I did pre-injury. So, life has a way of giving us twists and turns, which I think takes this whole conversation back full circle. And when you hear the saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade, but it's more than that. It's when you're handed a loss, when you're handed something in your life that may take you back, or it didn't go as it was planned, or whatever the case may be. The truth of the matter is, that's what life is about. So when something happens to you that makes you take 2 steps back, whether it be a loss, whether it be a dream that was, crushed, if you want to call it that, whether this young athlete that we talked about who wanted to do one thing and then turned out to put their competitive energy into something else. I mean, such is life. And you know what you do? You take that 2 steps back and then you lean in. Everybody that knows me, everybody that knows me knows I have a saying. When life comes at you, the best thing that you can do is lean in, and love big. Love big. And speaking of loving big, okay, loving big, I got to tell you, the Newton Area Women of the Year, all of them, Chad, love big.
Yep.
And I'm going to announce them right now. Andrea Breaker loves big. Rachel Bachman, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, loves big. Carrie, or is it Connie? Ooh. Carrie Holler loves big.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've interviewed one of those folks already. I'm supposed to be interviewing the other two yet this week. I will tell you that I'm not going to tell you which one, but just to give you an idea of the kind of people these are, right? One of them was in my office, and just because the way life works, we had to reschedule our interview, but she didn't leave my office without praying over my ankle that I hurt about a year and a half ago. I mean, that's the kind of people we're dealing with.
You're talking about.
But those are the kind of people we're dealing with,
Love
right?
big.
They are just, all three of them, absolutely amazing. And I think I'm gonna write an individual story on each one of them. We're gonna split it up. We're gonna, pop them off over the course of about 3 weeks, because we're gonna be doing an interview with each one of them, and they're every one of them absolutely amazing human beings.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a real blessing. And 2 of the 3 I know fairly well, and they're the kind of folks that are real big on, your decisions, you got to make them, and life is never over until you're in the grave.
Yeah.
And your decisions will define everything.
Yep.
As you make that journey.
And then when it's all said and done and you are lying there in the grave, your legacy moves on, and all of the people's lives that you affected and touched, all of the people that you were there to help, to love on, to be a contributor in their life some way, somehow, then they get to keep and carry on the torch. All right, Chad. Well, we're coming to the end of the program, and I want to give you, because I really don't have nothing to say, Chad, except for that I interviewed another Chad this last week, and it was great. And if you get a chance, I don't know if you've heard, but Sheriff Chad Gay announced for the first time publicly that he was running for sheriff again on that during that interview. He has yet to file, but he will, and I know he's a man of his word, and he'll get that accomplished. So you'll probably see those clips coming out. You probably ought to hit him up for an article, Chad.
Well, I'll at least announce his candidacy, but honestly, I think we all expected it.
Yeah.
I mean, I did.
Yeah.
I really did. I did. No, it's been a wild several days. I mean, I've been on the horn with the police department every day this week. I don't like being on the horn with the police department every day. I really don't. So I'm hoping things settle down here pretty soon. But most of those are about bad decisions, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, somewhere along the line, there's a bad decision that got made. So I would just encourage people to really think about trying to make better decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
And if you do make a bad decision, it's not too late when you're upright and breathing to turn it around.
It is not the end of the world.
It's not.
And I sat with a kid in an intake recently who kept saying, my life is over, my life is over, my life is over. We're talking about a juvenile here. I'm like, no. Far from over. You've got 60 or 70 years left on this thing.
Yeah.
Okay? The key to this to the next 60, 70 years, start making better decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. Okay? You're in here because you made a bad decision and a bad choice. So let's pick up and move on. There you go.
I can't agree more, so I concur. Have a good week, everybody.